Hey guys, welcome. We got a great guest today, Ryann Terry, who's a bodybuilder, personal trainer, fitness expert. So welcome, Ryann.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you. Thank you.
Hey, so my viewers basically have two questions. Number one, how do you freaking get a body like that? And number two, can you do it without exercise?
Well, no. So basically, there's a combination of things. I've been training now this is coming into my 15th year. So
Wow.
it's a lot of, a lot of consistent training. And obviously the diet plays a huge part in it. I trained for a lot of years previously. So the first 7 or 8 years, I was very naive. I didn't know a lot about the nutrition side of it. Once I started to understand the body and how it works, that's when I really started to transform and to sculpt my physique to what it is today.
And you're only 20 years old, so you started when you're 5? No.
No, I was 30. I'm nearly 30 now,
Oh,
unfortunately.
okay, good.
I was 14 when I started. I'm 29 now.
Wow. And now you were really heavily involved in sports, right?
Yes, yeah. So growing up, I was a keen sportsman. I did everything I could possibly. I excelled it was swimming, gymnastics, and soccer, football for us English
The real football. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed doing that, and I played at a national level for all three of those sports. And it was only when I got an injury when I was 14 years old through playing, from being so active. I put a lot of tension on my Achilles. I tore my Achilles. I had to go under operation. I had to have pots put in place in order to let the Achilles heal. And that was when I started to gain a lot of weight. Obviously, I was very active before. I was eating a lot of food as a kid, which obviously balanced my weight out. But when I stopped the active side, that's when I started to put quite a lot of weight on. So when I was 14, I was told to basically go to the gym and start to lose the excess fat I put on. And that's when I fell in love with the gym and started my fitness journey.
Wow. So give me an example of how long is your workout and how many times a week do you work out?
Okay, so it all depends on my end goal. So if I'm dieting for a show, I would typically train twice a day. And that is first thing in the morning on a fasted stomach would be 1 hour low intensity cardio. And then the second hour would be later on in the day when I've got fuel through food, carbohydrates, fats, proteins. And I would train later on in the evening, my more weighted sessions. I would have 1 to 2 rest days a week, depending on how my body's reacting, if I'm fatigued, and that's the beauty of bodybuilding. It's listening to your body, and if you've got aches and pains and you're not recovering fast enough, it means you need more rest. So it all depends on where I'm at, really.
Yeah, and then so for a lot of my people who are following me, they have a very tough time losing weight, and you have people that genetically don't have a slow metabolism. They can lose weight fast. They can build muscle. When you work with clients, do you have a certain percentage that are really tough to work with? Like they just don't lose weight easily. It's hard to get them to achieve their goals. Do you have those clients? I mean, obviously, probably.
Yeah, so it's dependent on the person, whether they've been very active in the past and obviously their metabolism and makeup. But I tend to start them off slow and slow increments and try to get them to basically get into a lifestyle rather than a diet brain. So try to enjoy the foods they're consuming. Try to eat cleaner sources. So when they're in a supermarket, they're going for more cleaner source food, more organic foods rather than processed foods, and trying to get them into activities where they're going to enjoy it. So if people aren't enjoying the gym, then trying to get them into a sport or something they're going to sustain over a long period of time and integrate it into their lifestyle. And that way I found, my clients and people I've helped in the past have lost weight that way instead of focusing too much in the gym. There are people who will struggle to lose weight than other people, depending on their genetics and their metabolism.
Yeah. Do you work with people that are a little bit younger, let's say 20s and 30s, or more 40s and 50s?
Yeah, so I have a range of people, but most of the people I've worked with in the past and worked with, they are avid gym goers anyway, because they followed me they've followed me for the past 8, 9 years when I've been on social media and been in the sports industry, and they wanted to take it to the next step of competing. So they're already in in that kind of mindset already. So I have taken on people who have never trained before, like my sister, for instance. She was completely opposite to me. Never did any sports. Was loved the fast food, and she was worked in an office, so she was very mundane, very sedentary job. But she was getting married, and that was her goal. So instead of doing it what I would do for a normal bodybuilder, which is 12 weeks, we did a year. We said, right, in a year's time, we're gonna do it progressively. We're gonna start to enjoy this lifestyle, and then that's when it'll all start to change rather than forcing it over 12 weeks. And it's keeping the health side of it as well, because that is things I've seen in the past, especially in this industry, that you can create food problems, you can create self-confident issues, and obsessions with food if you're very, very strict and you're depriving the body of what it needs.
Totally. Now, you're both from England, right? You're raised in England?
I am, yeah. I was.
So the food's much better there, right? You guys don't do a lot of sugar, do you?
I've got to admit,
Really?
I wouldn't say it's a lot better. I'd say the temptation isn't as much. Obviously, living in America for the past year, there's a lot of temptation out here where you can go down the street and every 50 yards you're going to see a different fast food joint or a different outlet of food. Whereas in the UK, you have to methodically think where to go and what you're going to have. So I do think that makes a difference. I really do. And I do think they are very more, not very more, sorry, they are more in tune with, obsessed with how many sugars they're taking. So over here, they're a bit more relaxed about it. And I can see the benefits to both sides, but I think in the UK they're a bit more anal on that respect.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
so you pretty much you like your workouts are old school, very standard type stuff. So can you give me an example of a bodybuilder's eating like pattern? I know they get their body in ketosis and then they kind of load up with carbs to hydrate or something, right?
That's very dependent on the bodybuilder and how far they're down on their diet when it comes to the last stages of their prep. A ketosis diet is quite extreme for bodybuilders when they're in the low percentages, because obviously the body's going to start to look at other food sources, other energy sources, which will then start drawing off muscle. When you're trying to maintain as much muscle and lose as much fat as you can, and you're into the low percentages, it's in the realms of not healthy, and it's gonna end up eating into muscle. So you'll only go into ketosis if you're behind and you've got to speed up the process, shall we say, in a bodybuilding mentality. But for myself, I will always give myself a long period of time. Like 12 weeks is ample for me, because I would only ever be, say, 5-6% over my body fat, and I would come down gradually. So what I would do is I would start off on quite high carbs, a good moderate amount of fat, and as I get closer to my competition, I will decrease the calories through my carbs, and maybe increase my fats if needed with my energy levels, and my protein will stay the same also. It's only on peak week and like the old school bodybuilders, and this is old school bodybuilders, where they really manipulate their sodium levels, where they drop the sodium levels, they dehydrate themselves, and like you say, they go into ketosis for 3 days in order to get a better reaction when they introduce carbs back in, which is called carb loading. Yeah.
Interesting.
But for someone such as myself, who's more on not on the bodybuilding side, more on the fitness side, we don't have to go to those extremes.
Wow, that's interesting, because people that are watching, especially the clients that I have, they're really confused because they're like looking at a bodybuilder. Should I do more carbs? So I want to bring up this topic and kind of cover some details. But just to let people know, when you consume more carbs, you're holding more glycogen, and there's like from your viewpoint, if you're going to increase carb, the look that you're going to get after that, I think, like right before the competition, you increase your carbs, right?
On average about 2 days. So you go deplete right down, and then you fill up for 2 days as much as you can.
And that makes the muscle pop or get bigger, right?
So as you were just saying then, with your glycogen, it basically fills up and it acts like a sponge. So you essentially double in size. When you pump up backstage before you go onto stage, you essentially get a big pump, and and you look 10 times bigger.
Right. And so for people that are watching, what that means is that when you take glycogen, which is stored sugar, and it's basically a water, it's a sponge. It's a fluid-filled sponge.
Yeah.
So wherever the sugar goes, the water goes. So you're basically hydrating that muscle to the extreme. You're almost like probably doubling or tripling the size of that fluid in the muscle. So now the muscles go bam. So that's really what's happening. And then, of course, after the match, you're going to go back to whatever you did, right?
Yeah, so you've got to be careful. Yeah, so you have to be careful because it's called spilling, where you spill over. So that's all dependent on you and how much your body can absorb, and that's why you have to monitor over 2 days. So you have to drip feed the body over the 2 days, and you have to test your tightness of your skin basically to see how much you're filling up. And some people, if they go too far with it, is where you spill over, and that's when you become watery and you don't look as dry and solid on stage. So there's some science behind it, but it all depends on you and your coach and how you go over the 2 days.
Interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah. but yeah, it's bodybuilding from the outside is quite a weird sport. but yeah, to be honest, I love how you can manipulate the body through food and stuff like that. And I'm still learning now. I've been doing it for competing since 2013, and I've done a lot of shows now. And even now, I'm still learning how my body reacts to certain foods. And if I take that food out, am I getting leaner? And I'm still learning. It's always a learning curve.
Totally. So,
and I've got to admit, I must add though, you know I watched your video on the apple cider vinegar and the organic lemon. And I've been doing that now for me and my girlfriend or fiance, I've been doing that now for the last 4 weeks, and we feel a lot better for it. Yeah, very, very good. It's something I've never done before, so yeah.
Oh, wow.
I took that on board.
Yeah, for those people that are not familiar with apple cider vinegar, it acidifies the body, it helps digestion, it helps mobilize minerals, it does a lot of cool things. There's not a lot of vitamins, but it actually helps people in a lot of different ways. So you just put it in some water, like a tablespoon, add some lemon, drink it down every day. Take it with meals. Yeah.
It tastes very bitter for me. It's like abla, as the English would say.
Take it with a straw. So I think what I want to bring up, which is kind of a point for people that don't have the genetics they haven't been born fit. They've been their whole life. They've been struggling. Those are the people that I want to bring up because you can't just necessarily use the same principles on those guys as I had to adapt different things. So if you have genetics like most people, which they have a problem with insulin, and what happens is they have a struggle with weight, body shape, and the whole thing, body fat, and so. The problem, if they do the carb loading, they're going to be screwed because what happens is the carbs basically block the fat burning. And I don't know if people really understand what that means, but it has to do with what carbs do to this hormone called insulin. And I think you know pretty much about insulin. Like, do you know a lot or a little bit?
Yeah, I know the basics of insulin. Obviously, not to your degree, and I'm interested to learn from this as well. Like I say, in a bodybuilding mentality, we taper down over the 12 weeks. So we've got a steady state of carbs, and we taper down, and then we only do the 2 days carb loading for 2 days to get that one reaction on stage, which is not sustainable for 365 days of the year. So the average gym goer or for someone who's trying to lose weight, I wouldn't obviously advertise that. Yeah, so
right.
I'm interested to learn from yourself.
Yeah, so I want to bring up the point of insulin actually helps make muscle. You can actually make muscle with insulin. So we need insulin, but we don't need too much. So when we have a little too much insulin, you develop this condition called insulin resistance. And that basically means that your body starts blocking the insulin. So the more that you try to produce, the more it doesn't work. And then what happens, your body goes, wait a second, we don't have enough insulin, so it starts making more and more and more and more and more. So we have this higher insulin, but it doesn't work in the body. So then that's like a diabetic. They have high levels of insulin. So what happens is that they have all the complications like the vision problems, the kidney, the nerves, all these other symptoms, yet their sugars are high because the insulin's not working to push it down. So now what happens if the sugar is high and they're trying to bring it down, then the doctor puts them on insulin, which is totally crazy. So they already have too much. So it's a situation where their muscles just go right down the chute because they have all this insulin, but it's not there to build the muscle. So they get partial information thinking, I need more insulin, I need more carbs, they eat more carbs, and it just makes them worse, 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 worse. So there's a, to heal that, to heal the metabolism, to really fix your metabolic rate, especially for people who are getting older and they're plateauing, you have to lower insulin. And there's two things that I recommend that are really powerful. And I recommend you do it together. One is, do the keto, which is a healthy version of the keto, which I'll explain. And then the other thing is intermittent fasting. Do you ever done that?
I've never done. I've heard of intermittent and carb cycling and ketosis, but I've never incorporated them into my diet now.
It's the most incredible thing. At first, you're like, what is that going to do? You're starving the body, right? But it puts your body, your cells, into this interesting state of super adaptation. So the cells start doing all sorts of really cool things. They start to getting younger. They start preserving muscle protein. They actually survive longer. You get rid of inflammation in the body. You have more endurance. So a lot of endurance athletes and even bodybuilders are getting into intermittent fasting because it takes your fuel source away from glucose to more ketones, which is a better fuel. It's cleaner. And so you'll have double the energy. You'll feel better mentally, cognitive function. So you get focus, concentration, memory, and mood. Your mood goes up. Like if you're running your body on sugar, you're going to be like mentally groggy, anxiety, and that whole thing. So ketosis with intermittent fasting is hands down very effective for health and quite a few things. So it's something that you might want to look into, especially for your clients that you want to speed up the results. But the problem is when they type ketosis, there's some confusions. They think that it's a high protein diet, but it's actually just a moderate protein diet. And they think, oh, I can't eat my carbs. Yeah, but we want to actually have a lot of healthy vegetable carbs because you're going to put the body in a fat burning mode and you're going to dump all this fat, and then the liver could fill up with fat if you don't consume enough vegetables. So I kind of have my own version of it that seems to work. We have hundreds of thousands of people around the world doing it right now, and with amazing success. Like I'm getting these results. I do a show on Friday morning, and I'm like, unbelievable, life-changing. I mean, like everywhere I go, I'll go to the grocery store, some guy comes up to me like, hey, I lost 200 pounds using it. I'm like, what? So it's quite effective for those people that are struggling basically, and you want to know how to basically use the diet version. Now, of course, you're like expert in the whole fitness thing, which I get into like this much, but the diet thing, I'm like, that's my main focus. But I think the combination is really important because especially if you're dealing with like slow metabolism and you're trying this and like you're menopausal and you're female and you're just like stuck. I mean, like I'll give you an example. There's a client that I work with that she's menopausal. She decided to go to the gym and lift 3 million pounds over a course of a year. So 2 hours a day, working out. At the end of a year, she lost, I think, 1.5 pounds.
Wow. Okay.
So I found out she likes apples and she likes a little of this. An apple nowadays, like in America, it's like 19 grams of sugar. It's more than a candy bar. So she's like adding the sugar, bumping her out of ketosis, and then forget it. For the next day or so, she can't lose weight. So,
So what's the side effects to ketosis? Have you seen any side effects from that? Because are they taking complete complex carbs out and then replacing it with, like say, vegetables and things?
Yeah. So a simple carb would be a refined carb. It would be like sugar and things like that, candy and things like that. But then when we get into complex carbs, people have the confusion. They think, well, I can have bread now because or wheat, that's a complex carb. I'm like, whole wheat bread. I'm like, no, 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 no. You want to do just stick with the vegetables, cut out the breads, pasta, cereal, crackers, biscuits, waffles, pancakes, and do vegetables, because if you let's take 7 to 10 cups of vegetable, which I do every single day, that comes down to a very small amount of calories because it's very high in fiber.
Yeah.
But you get a hell of a lot of nutrients. So at the end of the day, you actually can really grow a healthy body with vegetables.
So do you consume like white rice, like say white potato, sweet potato? No, you just eat the vegetables.
No, because that's like in your body you have stored sugar as glycogen. Well, in the vegetable family, it's like stored glycogen as this starch. It's like concentrated sugar. So the problem when you start doing the rice, if you have a problem with insulin, which most people in America do, I don't know about other countries, but well, yeah, they do. They're going to bump themselves out of ketosis for 48, maybe sometimes 24 to 48 hours. So here they are eating really healthy, and they add a little bit of starch in there. Boom, it's done. But the side effect from ketosis is sometimes fatigue, keto rash, cramps. That's simply because when you convert to fat burning, your cells need more potassium, magnesium, and B vitamins. So I always recommend do a really high quality electrolyte blend, and then also do nutritional yeast, which you can get in a tablet form, but those two will handle like 80 or 90% of the side effects right there. And then when
and you don't suffer from energy. Sorry to interrupt you. So you don't suffer from energy or anything, obviously, because you're getting your energy sources through fats. Is that correct?
So what happens is like you're actually switching the energy source from glucose to the byproduct of fat burning, which is ketones.
Yeah.
Now you still will have fatty acids as fuel.
I was going to say, because once you're obviously lean and you've lost the weight and you don't have many fat reserves from the body, you would need to get outsourced, wouldn't you, for energy? Is that what you do with fats?
That's a great question. An average lean person that weighs 160 pounds still has 77,000 calories of fat on their body.
Wowza.
Yeah. And they only have 1,700 calories of stored sugar. So like, it doesn't make sense to run your body in this short little tiny fuel tank that you're going to dump out in a day, and then you have to, I'm hungry, I got to eat. When you get your body in fat burning, you can go hours and hours and hours and like not hungry and feel great. So yeah.
But do you think, because obviously you're implementing at the minute, aren't you, the ketosis? So do you not struggle if you're on the go to find, because a lot of like places and a lot of food, carbs are quite a big part of food, aren't they? So do you ever struggle with that when you're on the go to think, oh, I can't have that because there's carbs in it, it's going to take me out of ketosis? What would you resort to then?
Like, are you saying maybe when you're traveling?
Yeah, so if you're traveling or if you're on the go, if you get stuck in traffic or something along those lines, because it's so easy to take yourself out of ketosis than to stay into it.
That's another great question, because I was traveling last week, and I basically had to take a flight to Utah, and it was like 4.5 hours. So we left late morning, and we got there at 4. I didn't eat anything. Now, if in the past, I would have been like going crazy. I wasn't even hungry. No hunger, no cravings. I could probably go several more hours. So when you get your body what's called fat adapted, you don't have the low blood sugar anymore, because you can go long periods of time. So we're talking, I can easily go 18 hours without eating, without any problem. And then I have my meals and I'm good. So it's, number one, you'll save a lot of money because you're not eating as frequent. Number two, before I had to constantly snack. I had to constantly have this. And I'm watching on the plane, like they're passing this little tray with all these snacks. And I'm like, and next thing you know, the guy's like sleeping. And I'm like, So,
well, that is, to be honest, for a bodybuilder, it would be quite difficult to sustain that, just because of the amount of, obviously, we're training twice a day. Some bodybuilders weightlift twice a day. And the amount of protein they try to get in and energy sources. The old bodybuilding mentality is to get the calories in through a balance, through carbs, fats, and through protein as well. But it's awesome to hear that, though, you know, that side of it, and to hear some benefits from that.
I think in the future there'll be more research, but I think this is such a new field for bodybuilders that I think you might find some interesting stuff or results if you looked at this concept of running the body on fat fuel as a bodybuilder, because number one, you're going to stimulate growth hormone by 2,000%, which is going to preserve your muscle protein, number one, so you won't lose muscle, and also preserve your glycogen reserve. So the parts of your body that need glycogen, either your liver could make it or you could actually release it easily. So it's something that's new. There's not a lot of people doing it, but potentially it could actually be another avenue for a weightlifter that could even give them the unfair advantage. But I do know with endurance athletes, they do very well with this type of eating plan. They can because their ability to burn fat is 3 times an average athlete. So they can just like go and go and go and just kick ass.
So do you incorporate intermittent fasting as well as the ketosis as well?
Always, because if you do intermittent fasting without ketosis, like let's say you do intermittent fasting with junk food or sugar, you'll never adapt. So if you don't eat, your brain is gonna feel really funky because you haven't adapted yet. Because your brain needs the sugar from the blood unless it runs on ketones. Now, if you do ketosis without intermittent fasting and you're eating snacks all day, you're not going to lose a lot of weight because every time you eat, you trigger insulin. And that's what
I see quite a lot in the industry now. Because if I don't understand it, or I stuck to what works for me, you know, in the past. So this intermittent fasting, it has become quite popular in the sports industry, but it's very much in the fact that they can eat what they want between the hours of, as long as they're getting their calorie intake and if it fits their macros. So I think that mentality needs to change. I think they need to become more educated in that field with the ketosis state.
Oh yeah, and also a person doesn't want to deprive themselves of all this wonderful Cinnabons or whatever they're eating. But the point is that you can pretty much substitute any junk food with something so similar that you won't know the difference. Like we make this ice cream with fudge and caramel that you would go, as no sugar? Yeah, you can have that. So there's a way to do it.
There's a lot of that in the US actually. That's one thing I will give to you guys. You're a bit more advanced in that respect with sugar-free sweets and treats. In the UK, you don't have that yet.
Well, we're trying to figure out to make a fish and chips version that you guys have, and I haven't perfected that out yet.
Yeah, we're getting there. We'll get there.
Yeah, right.
No, that's good to know. It's good to know, definitely. And it's something I'll look into a bit more as well, the ketosis.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time and interview. I think we got some really good tips for people to use, and it was good interaction. So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your time as well. And thank you for educating me on that as well. Really do.
Absolutely. All right, Ryan. Have a great afternoon.
You take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.